has the news covered like SABC News. We lead and they follow. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. It's a warm welcome from us here in Johannesburg in South Africa. Good morning to you. My name is Eben Jansen. This show is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are then repeated at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day with the entire show available on our YouTube channel all of the time. That means you can watch it anywhere in the world at your leisure. Today, well, we take a look at, we're going to cross live a little bit later to the Arms Deal Commission, where high-profile testimony got underway this week. Illegal mining remains a problem here in South Africa. Scores of these men refuse to surface on the East Rand, and according to Zimbabwe's finance minister, that country's economy will grow by 6.4% this year. First, here are the headlines. Police are on high alert at the Kwamashu hostel in Durban following the shooting of an NFP branch leader. 38-year-old Ntombi Mzila was shot by unknown gunmen last night. She died at the scene after sustaining 2 gunshot wounds in the body. The leaders strongly believe the incident was politically motivated. Former Trade and Industry Minister Alec Irwin will today take the stand for the second consecutive day at the Arms Procurement Commission in Pretoria. Irwin's testimony kicked off yesterday with him explaining his role in the 1999 multi-billion rand arms deal while he was still a minister. And the owner of the new Kleinfontein gold mine in Benoni say they will seal the shaft by the 3rd of March. The mine has been at the center of recent illegal mining operations. Some of the 22 men rescued from the mine will appear in court later today. A few appeared yesterday to face charges of illegal mining. Emergency services battled for most of the day trying to persuade the illegal miners to vacate the abandoned mine shaft. 11 of the illegal miners who were rescued from an abandoned mine in Benoni on the East Rand will appear in court today on those charges of illegal mining. At least, well, they say 200 more illegal miners believed to be trapped underground. Incidents of illegal mining and the high risk in which miners work has recently come into the spotlight after 10 miners died at a Harmony mine in Doornkop earlier this month. Now, in studio, we are joined by Russell Mayring from ER24 and Warren Beach, partner and head of the mining division at Hogan Lovells, South Africa, to talk about mine security and safety. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning, Evan. Thank you.
I want to start with the man who's been saving the lives so far today. If we can go back to the mine at the moment, Russell, just sketch the picture for us. What is it like? And I want to talk about the dangers and the risks that those men that are still underground that they are facing.
Basically, ER24 was called to this open veld where they were doing an inspection on illegal dumping, as far as I'm aware. When we got there, we found this ventilation shaft, if I'm not mistaken. And that's when Ekurhuleni Metro Services, as well as ER24, set up. And yeah, it can get quite hectic there, actually.
The number of mines, quite staggering, the number that people are talking about. 200, is that accurate?
Unfortunately, that is not absolutely accurate. We have spoken to some of the rescued miners that we brought up, and they have spoken that there are very large groups down there. In this one instance, just his group alone is 30. They have spoken up of 200 people down in the mine at the moment. That number is unfortunately still unconfirmed.
Now, Warren, this brings into play a whole host of legalities and issues around mining and abandoned shafts and so forth. Just tell us about the legislation or the policies that are out there with regards to abandoned mines.
Even just to go back to how dangerous it is, you saw in the news, the headlines, the miners, the illegal miners, coming out with no personal protective equipment. The clothing's not suitable for the underground environment. So they work in incredibly dangerous circumstances to extract what they do extract, in this case, gold. With regard to the legislation, the Mine Health and Safety Act actually requires owners of mines to continuously take steps to make sure that old abandoned mines, that people aren't injured as a result of it. They need to take reasonable steps where you normally would, for example, cap off the shafts with concrete. You would normally have security patrols, and once they've done that, they've generally discharged their responsibility, and then the responsibility shifts to the miners themselves, the illegal miners, and obviously the state has quite a strong role to play in that, the Department of Mineral Resources and the police.
Do you think mining companies are doing enough in South Africa to safeguard or to stop illegal mining?
The operating mines are certainly doing enough. The difficulty is that there are many abandoned and old mines that are not under the control of anybody and effectively are under the control of the Department of Mineral Resources. You also have generally two broad categories. You've got currently operations or illegal operations running alongside and parallel with existing and lawful operations, and you've got the abandoned operations, and there's a distinction. So where mines are currently being worked and you've got illegal miners working in the abandoned areas under working mines, it's easier to deal with than abandoned mines like in the Benoni situation.
Russell, I want to come back to you. It seems that this is a practice that is quite widespread around the country. It's not just in this area. Do you guys have any, or can you give us sort of an insight as to how many of these rescue operations you're involved in and how widespread this is around the country?
Yeah, and as you said, it is widespread throughout South Africa. So far in the past couple of months, in the past 2 months actually, we've encountered 3 different situations before the previous one in Roodepoort as well, where, as far as I'm aware, 6 people were killed down in those illegal mines. So it is very widespread. ER24 is taking initiative and obviously being on standby for these various mines. But we can't control all of them, and we can't always respond out to every single one.
Now this particular situation, how are you guys going to proceed now over the next couple of days? Is this rescue mission going to go on? What about this deadline that's now been put on them surfacing as well?
Well, ER24 has been placed on standby, that if any of the illegal miners are injured, that we will have at least 1 ambulance on site and the rest of them on standby. We have our disaster units as well. And various advanced life support paramedics. Hopefully we can get all the miners out in time before this deadline.
Talk about this deadline. Is this pie in the sky? Can you enforce it? Can you close a mine legally while people are still underground?
I don't believe that can be done. I don't think that the deadline can be met if there are people underground and there's knowledge of people underground. You simply cannot shut off this operation. It's going to mean specialist rescue and mine rescue brigades going underground. In other words, specialists other than the normal medical services. It's going to require a concerted, coordinated effort to extract the people there before it gets sealed off. You simply cannot seal it off.
Are there any legal precedents in play? Is there any way that we can maybe go back and say, okay, we've solved the problem like this in the past? Is there any way?
Unfortunately not. It's a recurring problem. Barberton is one of the best examples. The mine there is what they call the mountains there, the Swiss cheese. There's so many accesses. It's simply not possible to close off these mines. We don't have a precedent to deal with situations like this. It's an ongoing cooperative approach, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Russell, I want to go back. We're seeing pictures now of illegal mining and that sort of area. Just take us back and sketch the scene. You told us earlier it looked like an open veldt and, there were people screaming for help and so forth. But just sketch the scene that you guys came upon and how dangerous this situation really is that these men find themselves in now.
Well, as I said, this looks like one of the velds you drive past every single day. Same as the Roodepoort mine, where we have driven past it many times, and you don't realize that there's old mine shafts and ventilation shafts and things like that. Some of the dangers these miners can encounter, there's no proper ventilation down there. It's not a stabilized mine, so that shaft can collapse at any time. And obviously sending rescuers down there as well puts their lives at risk as well. They stay out down there for weeks at a time. So a lot of the times you'll find them malnourished, dehydrated, and it's just not safe for them at all.
I wanted to ask you about that. It seems that some effort is being made to feed them now and so forth. And how is that process going on now?
Well, when we arrived there on Sunday, we found a large concrete boulder blocking the entrance, and we weren't able to send rescuers down there. So what we did in a relief effort is we got some food and water, and we were able to pass some of these food and water parcels to them, just to keep them going for a bit. And we are carrying on doing that until we can obviously get all of them out.
Let's talk about mining safety in general now, Warren. How can legislation in South Africa improve in order to make it safer and better to operate these types of mines in South Africa?
Eben, the starting point is we've seen a year-on-year improvement in health and safety in the country. If you go back to our old accidents, the 1960s, 1970s, and in particular over the last 10 or so years, there's been a significant improvement. Our legislation is very good. Our Mine Health and Safety Act is a good piece of legislation. It always comes down to enforcement and interpretation. It is under proposal for changes at the moment. Whether or not those changes are going to make the changes which are expected, in other words, is it going to improve health and safety? That is something which is being hotly debated at the moment. My personal views are that many of the changes that are being proposed will not meet that. The most fundamental issue is when an accident happens, people have to tell the truth. If you don't know how the accident happened, you can never put in place remedial steps to prevent that from happening again. And our system at the moment doesn't encourage truthfulness. People are scared of the repercussions, the loss of jobs, prosecution. The mining companies are fearful of administrative penalties and prosecution. And in those circumstances, it's very difficult to get to the truth. So if you had to do one thing, it would be to try and improve and facilitate people feeling that they can come forward and tell the truth.
Well, we hope that is the case. Final word belongs to you today, Russell. Just tell us about the outlook for these miners. Now, how long can you survive in a hole in the ground, the masses of men that are underground at the moment?
I can imagine not very long, especially with the conditions that they are dealing with down there. Some of the miners that we have spoken to have said that they can stay down there for a week to 2 weeks at a time. And obviously your food stores and your water stores are very limited down there, as well as inadequate ventilation and things like that. We are hoping to get them all out, and we are trying to be positive, but we can't see them surviving down there for very much longer.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's certainly very worrying that so many souls are trapped underground, and we don't know what the outcome will be in the week to come. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eben. Thank you.
Well, moving on, Zimbabwe forecasts that the economy will grow by 6.4% in 2014, a big jump from the 3.4% projected for this year. But the Economic Intelligence Unit says Zimbabwe's economy will grow by only 2.6% instead of projections that were presented by Finance Minister Patrick Chinamasa in his national budget. Another report released by the Econometer Global Capital, a consultant outfit, is also painting a gloomy picture for 2014. Economic analyst Vince Musera joins us on the line from Zimbabwe. Good morning, Vince.
Hi, good morning.
Vince, we see all these conflicting reports about the outlook in your country. Can you give us an update?
Yeah, for sure. Chinamasa, when he actually did his budget, was very optimistic, and he projected, as we were saying, 6.4%, mainly driven by mining and agriculture. But we are very skeptical about that, because as we speak, the economy is actually just on pause mode. Companies are closing down. The unemployment is rising, and rumor is that actually the government has managed to only collect about 25% of their projected tax revenue of 300 million per month this month, and they have been unable to meet the promised increase in civil servant salaries. So I would agree with the projections that are very much lower than that.
Vince, let's talk about the introduction of 11 multi-currencies as legal tender there in the country. What effect is that having on the economy?
It's really much of a muchness. I mean, if you remember, before that introduction, we had 4 currencies. We had the US dollar, the pula, the British pound, and another currency, right? But Zimbabwe used US dollar. So now bringing the 8 currencies has not changed anything on the ground, really. I mean, you know, we're still trading in the US dollar, and I haven't seen any yuan or yen, and people are very wary of the, you know, of particularly the yuan, because now suddenly in the streets, what is the exchange rate that people are going to use? There is also the, you know, the possibility of forgeries and stuff like that. So on the ground, nothing has changed. Policy-wise, I don't understand why they did that, because, you know, it's really not going to help the economy. The issue is not about cash in the economy. The issue is about getting this economy to produce goods and services, right? And changing the currencies is not improving the economy.
And what is the ZANU-PF administration saying there, Vince? Are they talking about tackling hyperinflation, tackling manufacturing, etc.? What's the plan?
Right, we really have a leadership problem right now. ZANU-PF is currently involved in its own issues, and you've also seen that the MDC's got only its leadership issues. There is absolutely no leadership. They are continuing to punt their ZIM asset, which is the Zimbabwe Structural Adjustment program that they introduced. But there is no leadership, and as far as we're concerned, there is no plan. You cannot run an economy without cash, without disposable income. And those are the challenges. I mean, I've just noted, for example, the EU has removed sanctions this morning on some of the ministers, on some of the service chiefs. But that is not going to result in jobs on the ground. And ZANU-PF does not have a plan.
You're saying there's not even a plan to look for foreign investment and bring foreign investment into the country?
Listen, who is interested in Zimbabwe right now, given the country risk? The only people that have been investing hugely in Zimbabwe are the Chinese, right? The rest of the Western world and Europe, whatever, have really been not interested. So the issue is country risk, and the second issue is this unclear issue of indigenization. No one is going to put their money in an economy where there's uncertainty how much dividends they can take out of the country. So it's really back to the future. We are almost like going backwards towards 2008, where one, the banks are under liquidity strain, there is no cash in the economy, right? And regardless of what ZANU might want or what might say, there is just no legitimacy and trust in whether they'll be able to manage this economy effectively. I have argued, for example, that Zimbabwe needs a political solution. We really do need another political solution before we can expect this economy to begin to recover.
Well, Vince, let's hope the prognosis improves. As you say, that's economic analyst Vince Musewa giving us an update there on the economic situation in Zimbabwe, where talks of a 6.4% growth for the year was mooted by the finance minister in that country. Move on to one of our top stories now. Police are on high alert at the Kwamashu hostel in Durban. This follows the shooting of a 38-year-old woman who is a member of the NFP last night. NFP leaders strongly believe the incident was politically motivated.
The victim, Ndombi Mzila, was walking through a footpath between shacks. It's believed Mzila was approached by unknown gunmen who opened fire. She died at the scene. NFP leaders have described Mzila as a hard-working and dedicated member. The incident has heightened fears amongst supporters, but party leaders have called for calm.
We condemn the killings at KwaZulu-Natal. The whole KwaZulu-Natal, as our president said, even to manifesto that we condemn the killings of the people, especially the women who don't have a power to fight and to protect themselves.
With growing fears that violence could now escalate, police reinforcements were last night deployed throughout Kwamashu hostel.
Some of the 22 men rescued from the new Kleinfontein gold mine in Benoni on Gauteng's East Rand will appear in court today. A few appeared yesterday to face charges of illegal mining. Emergency service battled for most of the day, trying to persuade the illegal miners to vacate the abandoned mine shaft.
Driven by desperation, many simply turn a blind eye to the dangers. Some of these illegal miners walked for up to 15 hours through a maze of tunnels to this exit point.
It's been a painstaking process for authorities as they negotiate with illegal miners to come to the surface. The media has been barred from talking to those who resurface voluntarily. Some say they fear for their lives, while others appear to be evading arrest.
Various tactics are explored. This miner is asked to convince the rest of the group to come out. An unknown number won't budge.
They are very reluctant to come out due to the fact that, once they come out, we will patient assess them, treat them if need be, and then what happens thereafter is we hand them over to SAPS Organised Crime Unit.
Gillian Pillay, SABC News, Benoni.
Well, let's take a quick look at what you are talking about and thinking about on social media at SABC Newsroom. That's where we live on Twitter. That's where you can get, start interacting with us. sabc.co.za/news. Of course, that's where you can get all the updates all the time. But just give us the tweets that's coming through. Of course, most with unemployment at 25%. That's 13 million jobless with no social security, so crime prevails and illegal mining becomes a matter of survival, says Milster. Zai says, and with mines and mine bosses taking home sacks of money every quarter, why wouldn't illegal mining look like a viable option? Professor Matthew Lester, I can't imagine how desperate one must be to go into illegal mining. This is not about greed, it's about survival. We should be more sensitive. Rude Boy Nectar says, Botswana, I believe, is the only country in Africa where illegal mining practices shall never see the light of day. Wow. Eric West says, the Chamber of Mines estimates that illegal mining accounts for 5% of South Africa's total gold output. How much tax is being lost? Well, those are your comments. Keep it coming. We love your contributions. It's at SABC Newsroom. That's where we live on Twitter. Send us pics. Send us your comments. We'll put it up after a short break while we're going to cross to the Arms Deal Commission that is, getting underway once again in the capital, Pretoria. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
Sometimes a lot of people, in fact, do not have access, firstly, to palliative care. Secondly, even if they do,
So what? Do we just kill them if they don't have access to palliative care?
I think she's actually crucifying my question, with all due respect.
If you actually actively assist somebody to die, then you are convicted of murder.
Who should take the burden of terminating a life?
It's very problematic for doctors to play God.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Former Trade and Industry Minister Alec Irwin will continue testifying at the inquiry probing the multi-billion-rand arms deal underway in Pretoria this morning. He made a 45-page submission to the Commission yesterday. His testimony focused on how industrial participation were implemented to try and create jobs, boost the economy and local industry during the negotiation of contracts. The Seriti Commission is probing allegations of fraud, corruption and impropriety in the 1999 arms procurement contracts. Now, our correspondent Njanji Chauke has been covering the hearing and he joins us for the latest. Good morning, Njanji.
Good morning, Eben.
Njanji, second day, the first high-profile person on the stand. Just recap for us what came out of former Minister Irwin's testimony so far.
Oh, yesterday was a very interesting day indeed, seeing the former Minister Alec Irwin admitting on record that the arms deal which was signed in 1999 didn't produce the expected or targeted results. You'll recall that when the contracts were first signed, it was projected that it will create over 65,000 jobs. There was also talk of foreign direct investment as well as the local economy in terms of investment being boosted. But we saw the minister making his submission in that 45-page document there, admitting on record that it didn't produce the projected expectations and results. This is nothing new. It's been written about over the years. The arms deal critics have been saying that this arms deal that was signed in 1999, we've not seen those tangible jobs. And even if the jobs were created, the question was, where are they sustainable jobs? We also saw the Minister Rob Davies admitting also in that portfolio committee in Parliament that indeed those expected jobs were not really created. So it will be interesting to see what will be happening going forward.
How do you see matters proceed now, and what about concerns around funding around the Commission? How do you see the probe continue now?
It's getting very interesting now, because what we're seeing now is we're seeing top former government officials coming through to testify. You'll recall that they were subpoenaed to come and testify here, the former Minister Alec Irwin as the former Trade and Industry Minister. Yesterday we saw him submitting that document, and then he finished testifying, and immediately thereafter it was time to cross-examine him. He was supposed to be cross-examined by lawyers for human rights who represent three of the so-called arms deal critics or researchers, Andrew Feinstein, Paul Holden, as well as Henny van Vieren. It also emerged that with them, or their lawyers at least, had what's called a classified document. That classified document was the affordability report, which was compiled just prior to the signing of that arms deal in 1999. It sort of painted the various scenarios projecting the likelihood, the impact of the arms deal contracts on the economy. A certain model was used to check if the interest rates rose or if they dropped, what would happen on the ultimate cost of the arms deal. But the judge looked very irritated yesterday. He didn't understand how these witnesses managed to get that affordability report, because it remains classified. So this morning we'll be seeing whether that document will be declassified or not. We're just waiting for the proceedings to get underway as I speak.
The whole country is waiting, of course, for further high-profile testimony. How do we see this play out? When do we see the likes of Trevor Manuel, Thabo Mbeki, and so forth? Are they on the roll to be taking the stand in the weeks to come?
Yes, the media is starting to focus again on the Seriti Commission of Inquiry as we see the so-called big fish coming through to testify after Alec Irwin. We're expecting the former Deputy Defence Minister, who was also Intelligence Minister, Ronnie Castles, coming through to testify. Musiwa Lukota, who was the Defence Minister when the contracts were signed. It will be interesting to hear what Musiwa Lukota will say, because at the time when the agreement was signed, he was still an ANC member. He is now with COPE. So it remains to be seen whether he will toe the official government line, or he will spill the beans. Other people expected to testify is the former President Thabo Mbeki. Yesterday we saw some of the top legal advisors coming through here, Advocate Marumo Merwani, SC, as well as Mujanku Gumbi. Those two people are well known for representing the former President Thabo Mbeki. So there are already signs that the former president is also close by coming. The former ministers are preparing for the testimony by the former President Thabo Mbeki. But the question on many South Africans' minds is who has been implicated? How much money did they take? What's going to happen to that person? That's the average South African on the street that is asking as to whether this commission, their recommendations are going to translate into something practical. Are people going to be prosecuted? Is action going to be taken against those people?
It really is the equivalent of South Africa's own Watergate scandal, for those that remember the big scandals in U.S. politics. But thank you, Njanji Chauke, for an update there from the Arms Procurement Commission in Pretoria, where the 1999 arms deal into, well, the procurement of a whole host of arms in South Africa being probed for irregularities that have been speculated in the media over more than a decade. Let's take a quick look at what you are thinking about on social media once again. Of course, there's a lot going on around illegal mining in South Africa and many other stories. If we can put up those tweets, let's just have a look. There we go. Reports coming in from certain parts of KwaZulu-Natal regarding violence between NFP and IFP are concerning. Been going on for a while. Simmering, says Nobesute Tele. James Monare says, IFP versus NFP, bomb waiting to explode. Currently showing signals. That is certainly the case. Bootle says, IFP versus NFP violence and intolerance is still going on. It's 2014. Bazalwa, she says. Kolani Zondo says, I yearn for the day when politics, I think, does not amount to a loss of life. IFP, NFP, shooting. Fanaticism is still a problem. Yes, fanaticism is a problem, not just in this country, but pretty much in every country all around the world. Well, after a short break, we look at a whole variety of stories, from books and reading to football. Don't go away. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
Good evening and welcome to yet another edition of Sports Live, the show that brings you the latest local and international news, live interviews with the who's who in sport. He's the first South African to wear a yellow jersey that was at the Tour de France this year.
It's the first time that we get a boxer who's recognized by the Ring magazine as the best fighter in the planet to visit our country.
And he's very close to world record pace. And in fact, it is a new world record.
When you cross a line, what went through one's mind?
None of the four of us knew where it won. The scoreboard is always on the left, but all of us tend to the right. No, we just waited for the country to go down. RSA.
That's Sports Live, daily at 8:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a quick look at the news headlines. Police are on high alert at the Kwamashu hostel in Durban following the shooting of an NFP branch leader. 38-year-old Ntombi Mzila was shot by unknown gunmen last night. She died at the scene after sustaining 2 gunshot wounds in the body. The leaders strongly believe the incident was politically motivated. Former Trade and Industry Minister Alec Irwin will today take the stand for the second consecutive day at the Arms Procurement Commission in Pretoria. Irwin's testimony kicked off yesterday with him explaining his role in the 1999 multi-billion rand arms deal while he was still a minister. And of course, the story we dealt with earlier, the owner of the new Kleinfontein gold mine in Benoni say they will seal the shaft by the 3rd of March. The mine has been at the center of recent illegal mining operations. Some of the 22 men rescued from the mine will appear in court today. A few appeared yesterday to face charges of illegal mining. Emergency service battled for most of the day trying to persuade the illegal miners to vacate the abandoned mine shaft. Now, in a society overcrowded by the latest technologies such as iPads, TVs, computer games, the debate on whether people still take the time to open a good old-fashioned book is more alive than ever. Well-known South African business leader Benjamin Trisk was recently announced as the new part owner of Exclusive Books. Benjamin is once again at the helm of Exclusive Books as CEO, a position he knows well and loves, having been the CEO at the company 15 years ago. He joins us in studio today to talk about good old-fashioned book selling. Good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Morning, Eben. Thank you for having me on your show.
Interesting. Nice for you to be back. It must be a passion of yours.
Yeah, it's a passion, and it's truly like coming home again. In everything I've done, I've never had as much fun.
I want to talk about South Africans. You know, there's an axiom in South Africa that South Africans put their money in books. That's why, you know, when people break in, they never open books in South Africa, so your money is always safe if you put it in books. Is that still true in South Africa, or are people reading a little bit more?
Well, when you said to me people put their money in books, I thought you meant they invest in books. There's a wonderful Sanskrit saying that a house is not decorated if it doesn't have books. One of my Indian partners told me that, and I just love it. People are reading. I think that when people aren't reading, in a sense, we create that situation for ourselves as booksellers and publishers. So that we found when Harry Potter was the rage, J.K. Rowling got every kid on the planet reading books. Yeah. So it's not that people don't read. We need to give them what they want to read.
What about, you're running a few campaigns. I quite like the Readvolution one, where you, a little bit of political satire, I think. Do we still laugh at ourselves?
Not a little bit of political satire, a lot of political satire. It started off as an idea because of berets and the fight over berets and who owned what colour. This is just early days for us in terms of how we're going to handle that promotion. I'm thinking of launching a political party. My Dashant, I think, will be the Secretary General of the party. We'll call a press conference. I have to decide what colour beret suits her best. We have a lot of different avenues to pursue almost simultaneously. So, for instance, children's books, which are close to my heart and a real passion, have to be promoted in our stores because children are our next customers. Yeah. Children, by the way, buy in a very interesting manner. If you've ever watched children in a bookshop, in a book section, children's book section, they buy from the ground up. Yeah. We buy from the top down. So you need to make sure that in a children's bookshop, you change the order of books so that you can do that. On March the 29th, throughout the country, in all our non-airport stores, so we have 6 at the airports, 39 in centres around South Africa. Celebrities will be coming to read to children. And that takes me back to my own childhood when I used to be read to in bookshops. So we're hoping that people will respond to that. I think a lot of parents struggle with how to buy children's books. Yeah. What's appropriate for their child? What are the classics? So we've produced a kind of Dewey's reading list of what is available and what we recommend. And that's available in the stores, and people should ask for those lists. They don't cost anything, and it gives them a sense of how they should start reading to their children.
Fran, I want to ask you about how technology is changing the game for you guys with e-books and how consumer behavior is changing, and what sort of plans Exclusive Books are looking at to deal with this in the months and years to come.
Eben, clearly the Kindle particularly has affected book selling all over the world. However, it is interesting to note that the growth in e-book downloads, based on the latest figures we've seen in the States, has almost stopped. So that there is a return to books. People still use the Kindle and tablets as convenience tools, but there's nothing that replaces a book in your hand. What we're doing, for instance, later this year, we'll be launching something called the Dead Letter campaign. Yeah. We'll say to kids at school or people who are not at school who want to go back to university, write a letter that will not be open for 100 years. So imagine the kind of context you have to produce. Don't send us a printed letter. We won't accept it. It needs to be handwritten. Yeah. We'll give 10 different topics. I think they may well be around the life and death of Nelson Mandela. Yeah. And we will give 3 years of an accredited degree course at a recognized university. We will pay for all tuition, all books for the winning letter.
Wonderful.
So that is the kind of thing, amongst many, that we are doing.
Well, fantastic job, and Dewey's League and lots of other initiatives, but we've run out of time. Thank you. I would like you to come back and tell us a little bit more about this campaign especially. I think it might be one that would find favour with a lot of youth in South Africa. But thank you for joining us this morning.
I would love to come back, and next time I'll bring the Secretary-General of the new party as well.
Brilliant. I love that bit of political satire. That, of course, is well-known South African business leader Benjamin Trisk, who was recently announced as the new part owner of Exclusive Books, back there after 15 years. We move on now. The Africa Energy Indaba Conference 2014 kicked off in Johannesburg today, really, and will go on until the 20th of February. The Indaba brings together international and continental experts to share their insights and solutions to Africa's energy crisis, while simultaneously exploring the vast energy development opportunities on offer on the continent. For more on the conference, we are joined on the line by Diabo Seto from the Sandton Convention Centre. Good morning, Diabo.
Good morning, Eben.
Just give us the objectives of the Africa Energy Indaba, and then to cut to the chase, what are the solutions? Are we looking at fracking all over the continent?
Well, it may be general knowledge by now, even that Africa as a continent has a serious energy crisis. We can be testimony to that to our businesses in South Africa in particular, who all the time will give you the issue that electricity constraints are having a bad impact on their businesses. We know that Eskom is trying its ultimate best to try and conserve power. Just yesterday, as a matter of fact, they sent out a stat that by last year, 5% of power had been saved through its 49M campaign. So it has been urging consumers to save power as much as they can, because the national grid is very constrained. This morning, when this conference started, the Minister of Energy, Ben Dikobe, he addressed the conference, he opened the meeting, and he did touch on the kind of crises that Africa as a whole have, and also that South Africa have. Of course, at the moment, there are very limited opportunities of resolving the kind of problems we have, simply because we are still trying to, as South Africa, trying to get part of the IPPs, the independent power producers that the Department of Energy has sourced out. They've invested billions of rands in trying to get alternative energy solutions, because just being reliant on energy as a power source and of coal has proven not to be the best option. He did touch on that about 2.6 billion rands, 2.6 billion people are still without clean energy, which is a problem, and that in other parts of the continent, electricity shortages impact heavily on economic growth, which is also the case in South Africa. Like I said earlier on, if you ask any business owner what their biggest problem is they'll tell you about the energy problems, the electricity problems. There are a lot of stakeholders here at the conference. The World Energy Council is here. I will be speaking to them later during the day. There are lots of businesses also who are here who are in the energy industry, who are going to give their insights on what they think should be done. This, of course, is an annual conference, which means can only mean that it's a recurring problem.
Thank you.
In our later bulletins, I will be giving you an update.
Thank you very much, Diabo Seto, giving us an update from the Africa Energy Indaba Conference here in Johannesburg. Finally, the 7th annual Nedbank Cup, the premier knockout soccer competition in South Africa, has launched, with Nedbank reaffirming its ongoing commitment to all areas of soccer development in South Africa. Known as South Africa's own FA Cup, the tournament's David versus Goliath theme sees Mzansi's amateur teams take their shot at soccer glory by tackling the giants of the PSL. As before, amateur soccer players from all walks of South African life will be called upon to try out for the Kiona team that will eventually take on the Nedbank Cup winners. The Nedbank Cup will also continue to benefit schools and communities around the country. And in studio with us today, well, we are joined by Sydney Mbele, Nedbank's Divisional Executive Group Marketing, to tell us a little bit more. Exciting launch last night. You must be happy.
Well, we're very excited, you know. This is a culmination of a lot of work. Nedbank Cup in its 7th year. You know, we renewed about 18 months ago for another 5-year cycle. And it's because really it's done wonders for football, it's done wonders for us as a brand in trying to get people to understand that we are open for business to everyone.
Are you happy with the kind of inroads you've made in the, let's call it the lower LSMs, where you were maybe looking at over this period with your involvement in football?
Absolutely. You know, we come from a past where Nedbank was seen as a bank for the elite. A lot of residual perceptions about a bank for the rich, a bank for the few. And over the last 7 years, with our involvement with the Nedbank Cup, we've been able to change those perceptions. And, you know, if you want to really get close to people and get them to understand who you are as a brand, you have to tap into a passion point. And soccer for us was an obvious one. And, Nedbank Cup, 7 years later, you know, we're doing so much in the communities, and we're doing so much across the spectrum of our communities.
Let's talk about football. This really is a competition that gets the fans going, because you've got the little guy who plays semi-professional, who can come up and cause a big upset against one of the top teams. That must be really something that drives this competition. You
know, we would never be in soccer unless it seeks to demonstrate what we do on a day-to-day basis. The format of the tournament pits the Minas, the smaller teams, against the big guns, and that's why you referred to it rightly so earlier on as the FA Cup of South Africa. And you know, it just brings a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, a lot of competitiveness, because these small teams and these unknown players get into the stage to truly prove themselves. And we've seen in the last few years the Malutis, the Baroka FCs of this world really causing upsets in the tournament, and it just makes for such good entertainment value for soccer, but also good for development on the whole, because you know, when these boys go into the field, they are hungry and they want to prove that they're also talented.
What are you guys going to do differently this time around? How are you going to make it more exciting for the fans? And what kind of competitions can people look out for?
Well, you know, you will remember that last season or last year, we launched the Kiona Team Search, where we went into the lengths and breadths of our country to try and find 23 talented individuals who would then play against the winners of Nedbank Cup. And last year's winners were Kaizer Chiefs. 2 weeks ago, our own Nedbank Kiona team played against Kaizer Chiefs in front of 28,000 people in the stadium and approximately 4 million at home, and actually drew against Kaizer Chiefs. They then went on to lose on penalties. But it just shows that the exercise was really a good one, because 23 of those players half of those players have now been signed up by some of the PSL teams. So we're very excited that we've been a catalyst to creating a platform for these players to be, showcased. And it's about really making things happen. Yeah. It's about helping them achieve their goals and aspirations. So the Kiona team search continues this year. But we're also launching a card called the Nedbank Kiona card. Yeah. And if you get a card in the stadium, in the malls, all walks of life of our country, you then stand a chance to partake in a lot of activities that we will do on an ongoing basis. People will win Nedbank Cup merchandise, competitions, and the list goes on. And it's really our effort to try and get close to people, just to make sure that not only do they get physically fit, we also want them to be financially fit.
Well, that's fantastic all round. A fantastic launch last night, and we wish you all the best with the tournament. And let's hope the Minnows have some success again this year, as always. It really ups the ante for everyone.
Thank you very much for having us.
That is after the launch of the Nedbank Cup. That's Sydney Mbele, the Nedbank Divisional Executive Group Marketing, telling us about what, you at home can really expect. Then finally, last month we brought you South Africa's own YouTube sensation, Philippa. And this morning we're proud to announce that she has won the RyanSeacrest.com search for the best One Direction cover of the smash hit Story of My Life. The competition that began in January with 26 finalists was driven by public vote, and each week a number of contestants were eliminated. We leave you today with Philippa. Of course, this show is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are then repeated at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. following morning. We also stream live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day, with the entire show available all day on our YouTube channel. You're watching SABC News. This is Newsroom, where we love it in the morning.
To me in the morning, you don't feel the same about us in his bones. Seems to me that when I die, these words will be written on my stone. And I'll be gone, gone tonight. The ground beneath my feet